I genuinely love spey casting, the art of it, the casts, the big heavy lines, the big long rods, the big wide rivers. You're just standing in the Northwest where it's dumping rain on you. It's winter, you're miserable, and you'll go sometimes years without even touching one of these fish. And like I've been fishing for 9 years and I've caught 5. Like the odds aren't great there, guys.
Hello, everyone. What is going on? My name is Nils Mindnich, and this is the Backcountry Podcast, a show aimed at providing insight into the outdoor industry by interviewing people who operate within it. Today, I'm going to be talking with Kayla Lockhart, angler and avid outdoor enthusiast. What up?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in today. How are you doing? We were just chatting a little bit before the show, and it seems like your travel schedule has been super chill.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, in comparison to last year, so far it is more chill. But yeah, I definitely live a life where I pay rent to not be there.
So it goes.
Yeah, but I'm very, grateful for sure. A lot of fun stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You actually just recently moved too.
I did.
Quite a bit of a change.
It is very different. I went from the Pacific Northwest to the high deserts of Colorado. So I'm in Newcastle area, which is, if you're familiar with like Rifle or Grand Junction zone, and then close to Glenwood Springs, but a lot of great fishing. So it's great, but a lot of high altitude too. So comes the adjustment of living at sea level my whole life.
Yeah, you said you're acclimating super easily.
Yeah, for sure. If you call like puking on the hiking trails easy, then yes, I'm pretty much already there.
What elevation are you at?
Oh, geez. I think I'm lower being in Newcastle, which is honestly one of the reasons that I was hyped about it. But like I'll drive into like Basalt to go fish and I'll get sick on that drive alone. Because Basalt, I think, is at like somewhere around 7,000. And then Aspen, I did Independence Pass last fall, and that one was gnarly because it's like 10,000 elevation. And I mean, if I'm seeing like mountain goats and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't be here.
Red flag.
Red flag.
Maybe a beige flag. You're like, oh, this is so pretty, but
yeah, exactly.
I better hydrate.
Yeah.
That
is honestly the biggest thing is the hydration. I thought I was good at it, and then, man, that area really tests you.
Yeah. There's something about Colorado. It's so crazy. I spent a couple winters living in Breckenridge, and my friend's house, I was crashing on their couch, and it was this neighborhood outside of Breckenridge that was built they developed it in 1999. And at the time, and I think still, it was like the highest elevation neighborhood in North America.
Oh, wow.
And the house itself is at 11,500 feet.
Yeah, I've been to Breckenridge, and I did a girls trip. Every single one of us got sick. We didn't leave the Airbnb once.
Yeah.
We're like, dang it.
It's so brutal because I would get back from a trip, and to get into their house, it was this 20 stair set. Taste, it's on a hill, right? It's like you gotta walk up all these stairs to get into the house because it's on a hill, and you're at 11,000 feet. You're coming from like an international trip or something, completely blown out.
The stairs are next level. I was like, I'm on the phone with my sister, and she's like, "Are you good?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just walking up some stairs." I was like, I feel so pathetic, but I just like, there's just no oxygen.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, it's great.
That's good. What brought you there?
Honestly, I went through a separation, and I was in Portland for 9 years, and I did have an incredible community there, but after COVID, I was just kind of like done being in the city, and I always wanted to not be in a city. And so I was like looking at Montana, looking at Utah actually. I knew I didn't want to go back to the Midwest, and then my friend Heather lived in like Marble area, which is outside of Carbondale, and her neighbor was renting out his like whole house while he was in Mexico. Had like a hot tub, is like on the river, overlooking Sopers Mountain, good, really affordable rent, and it was like temporary. So it was like, all right, I can like do this, and if it doesn't work, it's not like a big commitment. And then I just didn't leave after that. So far so good.
Cool, that's perfect. Does it feel like a bit of a homecoming because you grew up in Minnesota, correct? And I've never been to Minnesota. My impression is that it's fairly rural, or if not,
flyover country.
if you are in a city there, it's easy to get access to more natural areas.
Yes and no. It depends on if you're I grew up lake fishing and hunting, and that was an amazing opportunity, but there's not a ton of rivers like there are here, like in the West. The Western river system is just nothing compares to it, in my opinion. But we are the land of 10,000 lakes, but now it's 15,000. They changed it, but there is a lot to do in the like North Woods, which I grew up in southern Minnesota, which is mainly all farmland, and like any water is used for irrigation essentially. So we would always drive up north if we went fishing or doing anything recreational wise. And so took me leaving to appreciate it, but now I love the North Woods. It's one of those, everyone learns that, I feel like, when you leave home.
Yeah, totally. And was your family was that kind of part of the program, like hunting and fishing and outdoor recreation?
Yes and no. So like my dad was the huge outdoorsman. My parents were never married, but they split up when I was 6. And so I kind of went with my mom when I was 6 and I have 2 sisters that are like a year and a half apart from me. And so my dad kind of wasn't in my life until I got to like, he had alcohol abuse. And so like he got sober. Now he's been sober and now he's my best friend. It's amazing. My mom unfortunately never got clean and we don't have a relationship anymore. But so till 6 I was outdoorsy. And then from 6 it was kind of just survival mode. I was in foster care and split up with my sisters and it was crazy and made me who I am today. So I'm very, wouldn't change anything. But I found the outdoors again when I was 15. I got emancipated, which essentially you become an adult. And then I just like fished every single day out after school. I graduated early, so I graduated when I was 16. And then I just kind of started living my life. I got a career and then I just fished as much as I physically could because that was like my only like time that I could just, deal with things that I was going through. And so, the outdoors is a blessing and definitely why I catalyst to moving out west. It was because of fishing and why I teach is all of that. So it's big full circle. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was reading a little bit into that and the context of growing up in Minnesota, but that was more than what
it's a lot.
Been aware of.
Yeah, that could be a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, totally. But it's, I think it's really cool, and I'm curious what perspectives you've maybe gained through that time period, because having something like fishing or basketball or running, something to like some form of continuity, dependability, something that like you can trust in a way, where you're like, I can go to the river, I know my fishing pole and I can catch fish.
Yeah.
I can count on that.
Yeah, there is an element of that for sure. And I will say I didn't really gain my perspective towards it because at the time I didn't even realize that it was like helping me get through things.
Because I was like survival mode.
Like in my brain, I was just like, oh, this is just like the quietness to my thoughts and stuff. And so I didn't really realize it was like talk therapy without saying a word to me until I got older. And then I started seeing a therapist and they helped me like understand and have these perspectives and grow and everything. And, I'm 34 now. And so I've transitioned a ton in my life, changed a lot in my life and learned a lot. But at the time, like definitely in reflection, my biggest thing is like fishing to me was a replacement of having a mentor. And for me now that I'm older, like any kid, they go through anything. Like it doesn't, like just because I was in foster care, like somebody not in foster care, they also live their own struggles. Every child has had some sort of trauma, whether it's chosen trauma by like something crazy or, something out of their control. And having a mentor, I think, is the biggest thing. Like somebody that can help you believe in yourself and make sure that you feel confident that, the world's not out to get you. The world doesn't owe you a favor. Like you don't need to be a victim in it. And so that's like been the most powerful thing that fishing has taught me, because it led me to the Mayfly Project, which mentors kids in foster care. So big full circle, which that's like a gift in itself. And a lot of that I wouldn't have learned if it wasn't for that nonprofit, for sure.
Yeah. Let's just kind of get into that. That was something. No, I think we'll jump around a bit. We got plenty to talk about, but I think that's a cool natural transition into the Mayfly Project. Yeah,
it's an incredible organization. It's very niche because it's just in the fly fishing industry. So
I think that's the way to do it, though.
Yeah, on the larger scale, like I would love for it to be, even bigger, but we are in almost every state. There's one in the UK, there's one in Canada, so it is great. It started with in Arkansas with Jess and Caitlin, who are the founders, and they both work in social services areas, and so they had like a perspective from that avenue, Whereas I'm not the only mentor that was in foster care too. Like that's one thing I've learned in fly fishing is there's so many people that have had similar upbringings that I have and have found something through fly fishing. So if that's not a testament that it heals, I don't know what is. Like, cause I'm not the only one that's figuring that out, that it does something for you. But also like bringing those kids out on the water. And we work with the same kids for a whole year. You know, they're so used to somebody like saying they're going to show up and not show up for them, or, you know, people that coming in other lives. And so it's really a main focus to have the same kids for a year. Some of them age out of foster care and some of them keep in touch. They get to keep all the gear at the end of it. So a lot of them can then have that resource to go and fish on their own. And, you know, not every kid loves fishing. They might be obsessed with just like sitting by the river or being in nature. Some kids love the etymology and like picking up rocks and looking at the bugs. And so you definitely like tune it to each kid's experience. And it's really important that we have a mentor for each kid so that they have one-on-one attention. But yeah, there's several of them in Colorado. There's one in Salt Lake City area. There's so many. So if you fly fish and you want a mentor, check them out.
That's cool. And are you a mentor? Is that kind of your involvement?
I started the Portland, Oregon chapter. And then I had to hand it down to a new lead because I moved, unfortunately. But now that I'm living where I'm living, there used to be a project there. But the one thing that is tough is, which you would never think, is just finding the kids and having it be accessible for them to be committed to it. You know, every state and county has different laws, and so there's a lot of hurdles you have to go through. And so where I live now, the project never really got legs, and so I'm hoping that I can figure that out. It's mainly just transportation because a lot of the rifle area was far from Roaring Fork Valley, but I'm like so bound determined when it comes to that stuff. I was like, I'll rent a shuttle bus. Let's go, baby. Like, yeah. So it just depends how much time a mentor can give to the projects and commit, which it is a lot. And they are Jess and Caitlin who run it are extremely thoughtful and are very good at like, you know, you do a thorough background check, you meet with them. And if you don't have the time and stuff they don't want you to like start it because if you start it and these kids expect you to be there and then you're like, oh, this is too much, it really is not what the whole point is. So it is a commitment, but it's so rewarding and so worth it. It's amazing.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Have you done it for a while?
I met with Caitlin, it would have been in 2018, and that was like full transparency before anyone knew my story. Like I didn't share that on social media. I didn't share it with anyone. Like my boyfriend didn't even know I was from foster care. I was like, that is my dark secret I hide. Because I had a lot of shame still attached to it. I was really young. I was only 26 at the time. And so when I called her, I wanted to just be a mentor. So I was sharing this with her because I was like, I can do this. Like this is this is made for me. Like come on. And so I was just sharing all this stuff with her, and then she came back to me like a week later, and she's like, I wrote an article on you. I'd love to like put it in a magazine. And I was just like, what? It's hard for me because it's not just my story. Like I'm second oldest of 7 girls, and so it's sharing their story too. And so it's something that I have to be really thoughtful and recognize that, you know, just because I'm feeling comfortable now sharing it doesn't mean that, you know, my little sister does. And so, you know, she's my younger one who's 23. She aged out. Like she went from 4 to 8. She was in the whole system her whole life essentially. And so, you know, her story looks different than my story, but in a way they're still intertwined. And so that is the one thing that I have to be thoughtful about when I do share and open up in that. But yeah, it was a tough, but in the retrospect, it now led me to heal, which I didn't expect. Like I was so scared when it came out. I was like, and then I have this 15-year-old girl. She emailed me through my website and was like, just told her whole story and just opened up and said like how much that helped her. And I was just like, I get it now. Like now I see why people are vulnerable. Like it can be so rewarding when you can touch one person and it means something to them. That makes it so worth it to be so scared and petrified about sharing and be open. So yeah, slowly I've definitely healed as I gotten older for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm, you know, sharing or opening up about any source of trauma. I think at some point along the line is a pretty important part.
Yeah, I feel like process. It's human level. It's how we connect on
it's
a deeper level.
Human
yeah, it's how we feel like we're not so different, whether, you know, whatever background, race, whatever road you walked in life, there's some way to relate to everybody. And I think that if the world was looked like that in a little more empathetic eyes, we maybe would be a little better place too. But But
Mayfly Project,
that's
definitely
my
making
little
steps
one.
in
One part. The only one person, but they're great. They're a fantastic organization for sure.
That's really cool. And now we'll kind of back it up again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about your move to the West Coast, or how you found yourself moving out of Minnesota.
I was like freshly 25 and never seen a mountain before. And I just packed up my car and never been to Oregon, never been in a city. And I had oh man, I wish I could show you a photo of the I had truck bed. They'll take the back of the truck off and make it in a trailer. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
So it's just like the truck bed.
Oh, yeah.
So I bought one of those for $50 because I was going to get a U-Haul, and I'm 25 and I'm like, $1,000? That's like my salary for 10 years at that time when I was 25. And so I was like, okay, I'll buy this for $50. Had the tiniest wheels on it. I painted West or Bust on the side. Things you do when you're dumb and 25. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to just figure this out.
I'm doing it.
And then I remember it was amazing. It was my first solo road trip, which, man, if everyone could do that, I cannot recommend that more. That is a gift in itself, just doing a solo road trip. And then I get to Oregon and a weekend, I'm in Portland. And I remember calling my sister and being like, I'm moving back. I can't do this. This is it was so overwhelming. And I wasn't prepared to be culture shocked, I guess, in a little bit too. Coming from a rural area in Minnesota to just straight into the city. And the nature part of it was amazing. And I was awestruck, but the hustle bustle of the grind and everything and living, I've never seen any of that. And so I was very, I guess, not anticipating so much of that. And then I remember at that time, me and my dad we grew really close now and we're best friends, which is an amazing. And I called him up and he's like, just give it 6 months. He's like, just wait 6 months. And this man, he lives on the same street he grew up on, never been on an airplane, has never seen the ocean, never seen the mountain. And he's just like, wait 6 months. I'm thinking he's going to be like, come home right now.
What are you doing?
Yeah. But and so then I was like, well, shoot, I got to do it then. And so I waited 6 months and then I lived there for 9 years. And it was the best thing I could have done for myself to detach from Minnesota and I guess I was very attached to my siblings too, which we are very close. And so it was good for me to just be on my own and figure my own stuff out, which I just didn't know at the time, but yeah. So It was a good area.
Were you the only one to move away? Is your whole family
still every single one. All of them are still there. Yeah. I'm the only one that lives outside of it. But it comes with good and bad because I'm really close with my sisters. And so I have a niece and, you miss a lot. You miss a lot of, great moments where I used to just be able to drive down the street. And so there is that, but FaceTime's great. I go back once a year in June. I don't go back. Well, I go back in November for whitetail hunting as well. But
there you go. Yeah, of course.
Those are my 2 trips.
Tailor
and
your
then
trips
I'm like, all right, one of these days I'll get them to come visit me. So we'll see.
Yeah, totally. No, I can understand that. Yeah, my family's a little spread all over the place, and you just sort of gotta it's wild because you figure it out, but time goes by and you do miss things, and then
it's harder the older you get for sure.
Yeah, the older you get, maybe the more perspective you also get of being damn it,
yeah, it really.
I need to I do need to go. I need to do something, a little proactive effort to stay in touch with everybody.
And I'm too open sometimes, but it really hit me, and I'm 34 now, and I over the last 2 years lost 3 family members within 3 months. Boom, 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 and that was when I was just I haven't been home in 9 Christmases. I haven't been in those thoughts because you can't get it back. And so it really, time is fragile. And that is something I'm now trying to devote more time into going to visiting them. But you can say it and then all of a sudden a year goes by and you're like, shoot, what happened?
Yeah.
It's part of life. Everyone navigates it. But it's definitely something that weighs on you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Okay. So we're in Portland. Yep. And obviously at some point you make the transition into fly fishing, which seems to be such a
I started fly fishing in Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
So before I left for Portland, I started. So I conventional fished my whole life. I hunted my whole life, but I learned it through my grandpa or my dad. And so I was just searching. Honestly, I had a miserable job. I was absolutely miserable. I worked at a wellness clinic And I was like 18, working like 60 plus hours a week. I was making great money. Now on paper, I'm like, oh, I'm doing what I should be doing. I'm living on my own. I'm paying my bills. And I was just absolutely miserable. And I just like Googled how to fly fish. I just Googled it. Like what other, that's what you do when you're 22, 23, you Google something. And so I'd watch videos, and then I like searched for the closest fly shop, which was like at the time, an hour and a half from where I lived. Bob Mitchell's Fly Shop, which I am very lucky because I had an incredible experience there. I walked in and he had these like courses that you pay for, and he taught you everything. He went from like tying a fly to reading the water to learning about the bugs to learning to cast, and then to bringing you out on the water so you can then use all the things you learned. And I was just like obsessed with the learning of it. And like I wasn't like a great. I was a potentially great student. It was how I'd like to say it. Like in retrospect, like if my home scene would have been better, I probably would have been a lot better, but I love learning. I love challenging myself. And I also have ADHD. So I hyper focus when something's interesting to me. And I just like was obsessed with it. And once I'm obsessed with something, like if you know me, like I immediately run with it. And I started like setting up a tripod and like filming my cast, and then I'd critique it. I'm such a perfectionist when it comes to that stuff. And so I was obsessed, and then I moved to Oregon. It would have been like a year and a half, 2 years later after fly fishing. And then I loved fly fishing there, but then I learned steelhead and salmon and spay casting, and then a new obsession within fly fishing happened.
So, you have like steelhead?
Oh, that was
fish?
My life.
Okay, because I know.
I love me some chrome. And it's funny because
let's get into that, because I kind of know that it's like its own sport.
It is.
What's up with that? Give me explain it, because I actually don't understand.
It is like, I don't know. I'm trying to put it into words. Like it's a culture within itself is steelhead, and there's a community around it, and it's the ones, we call it the unicorn fish, or the fish of 1,000 casts, if you will. And there's different levels of it. Like there's people that will fish any way for them. I personally will only swing for them, and I'm one of those elitist snobs, but it's mainly because I just want to catch them the way that I want to, and I genuinely love spay casting, the art of it, the casts, the big heavy lines, the big long rods, the big wide rivers. You're just standing in the Northwest where it's dumping rain on you, it's winter, you're miserable, and you'll go sometimes years without even touching one of these fish. Like the mental trauma you go through for fishing them, and then when you do, there's nothing that I can put into words that I've ever felt that I have experienced when I've finally come tight with a steelhead. And I've been fishing for 9 years and I've caught 5. Like the odds aren't great there, guys.
How many casts? You 5,000 casts in?
Oh my gosh. Like I would go, I can't even count. Like there's so many. I would go every single day, some of the winters. And, I've been, it's tough too, because you also within that become attached to the resource because it gives so much to you and you love it so much. And you definitely, start at some of your favorite rivers are starting to get closed. Some of your friends that are guides are like out of their jobs for a while. And so that is also like a big attachment that I have. And so you definitely grapple with this now, fishing for a species that are declining. And so it is a tough thing to love so much, to also feel so like that's one reason why I only will swing on, I'm looking for the most, aggressive fish in the waters. And, I'm very thoughtful in, not taking them out of the water. A lot of times I don't even take a photo. I just it's just solely the one species that is just for me. And it's just like a one-on-one situation. I don't know how to put it into words. It's the most intimate fishing I've ever experienced in my life. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. You have to really put your soul into it, essentially. But the people that do, there's a reason there's so much conservation by anglers around salmon and steelhead, is because those fish mean so much to us. And we will go, bat to bat to protect them if we have to. And so that's why I just love them. I could talk about them all day.
Oh, it's cool.
That was definitely, I'm still grieving not living there, and it's definitely tough. I've gone back, a few times from being away, and the last time I went steelhead fishing, it was is in Southern Oregon. It was on the Rogue River, which I've never fly fished before. And I caught 4 steelhead in one day and I was just like, wow, is this them saying goodbye to me? I was like, I was all emotional. But they do that to you. They like strike a chord that is unexplainable. And yeah, they're just a keystone species, and I don't know, there's just something about it. Something about a rainbow trout that's like, you know what? Screw this river. I'm going to the ocean. Like, how can you not respect that? That is the coolest thing ever. And the fact that they don't die after they spawn, unlike salmon, well, not Atlantic salmon, they don't die. But yeah, they're just the coolest fish ever.
Yeah, they look so savage, and
They do.
everything I've heard
All
about it seems
up.
pretty. Yeah, like it all just sounds like kind of that like next intense,
They're the best.
intense like step. Oh wow, that's really cool. And how did you kind of eventually have found your part of your lane is content creation, this whole social media influencing world. Like,
yeah, I still like
is that
trip
something
out
that like something that happened naturally where you're like, because some people seek it out where they're like, I'm gonna be a YouTuber.
I still don't even know why people follow me. I'm just a big silly goose. Like, what do you want to know about me? But I've been very I never sought it out and like never anticipated it to happen. And like full transparency, like at the time, which this would have been almost 10 years ago, like, that's crazy. Like 2015 was when I moved to Portland, and my ex was already sponsored. He was a professional BMX rider. And so he then through that met Reddington Gear, who's my rod and reel sponsor now. But that connection was fully through him. Like I wouldn't have met them, and it was meeting, obviously like I met them. It wasn't just like, hey, put her on here, but it was 3 years of building that relationship and then eventually becoming on the team. And that was like the first anything that I did. And so, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I had like 300 followers at that time. Like, I was just like, hey, mom, look what I did. Like I wasn't
here's my coffee.
Yeah, like I wasn't, didn't know what I was doing. And then I just was sharing just fishing, like the dorkiest stuff. Like it'd be like me riding my dirt bike up to the high Alpine Lake and just being like, here's this fish. It's caught a trout. Oh my gosh. But like, let's be honest, I'm a female in a male dominated sport. Like it's a niche in itself. And so I would be kidding myself if that didn't like have some sort of, I can't imagine it doesn't, I guess is what I'm getting at. And so it just like slowly started growing and like, I didn't really think anything of it at the time. And then with that growth, like it was honestly that stage was so fun. I was like connecting with all these other people, like, oh, like I'm going to be in this, I would do road trips and camp trips all the time. I like had like an old 90s van that I like slept in the back of. And so I'd be like, hey, I'm in this state. And like you'd meet this person and be like, oh, let's go fishing. And then like all of a sudden you're just making all these friends everywhere. So at that age, it was just so fun. And Instagram was so different back then too, I feel like a little bit. But within that time frame over the, like, I feel like from that until like 2017, 18, I started getting more sponsorships. But at that time, I owned my own business. I was doing medical billing. And so that was my income. I didn't get paid sponsorships. Like, don't get me wrong, gear is amazing. But like, I'm not paying my bills with my, flies and rods and stuff. And so I did chiropractic billing, and I was able to work remote though, because I own my own company. And
Can you expand on that? Sorry, not to derail you,
so
but that just
random.
sounds great. I'm like, you and your own billing company for
that also just like kind of like evolved on its own. So when I was 18, I applied for this job as a front desk person at a chiropractic clinic. And at that time I was working the smoking section of IHOP, and I was like, I cannot do this. I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. And I was
just love pancakes.
I just love pancakes. I actually have a gluten allergy, which also sucks.
Okay, we'll stay on track. The billing.
So I got this job, and long story short, I worked there until I was 25, and the owner he became almost like a mentor in itself to me. He like paid for me to go to some college courses for x-ray technician and chiropractic assistant and medical billing. And he just was like, took me under his wing, as you will. And so then it's just me and him, and we ran that clinic, and I slowly worked up the ladder within that company. And it wasn't like anything big. It was just like a small practice chiropractic clinic. And then it started to grow. When I left at that time I left, it was like they had 4 doctors, acupuncture, massage, a gym, a nutrition thing. So it grew a lot. So I learned a lot within that. And then I quit and moved to Portland. And I started at the front desk at another clinic in Portland, and I was just like, oh no. I just worked my ass off, and then just to start all over again.
Reset, yeah.
And
tough.
that was really difficult. And then one day he just called me and he's like, hey, I have this buddy who's starting a clinic and he needs someone to help him with so and so and so and doing billing. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it when I get off work. I'll do it in the evenings, and I log into his computer remotely, send all his claims, do all his insurance stuff. And then he was like, hey, my friend has a buddy, and then my friend has a buddy, and then my friend. And I was just like, whoa. And all of a sudden it was something. And so then I was like, I better do something with this. And so that's when I quit that $10 an hour job when I got paid once a month. That was the hardest budgeting I've ever done in my life. And then just went full into this and was hoping that it would work out. And honestly, it's not like I was rolling in dough, but I was able to pay my bills and still fish and do the things I love. And that was all that mattered to me. I definitely wasn't making 401k money or anything, which, that's one thing that sucks about being in the outdoor industry. We just live now.
Everyone's rolling in it.
I'm retired now, so I like to pretend, and then I'll probably work when I'm 60 at a labor job. But yeah, it's wonderful. And then when fishing picked up and I was making money through that, getting contracts, real contracts, and I was just like, whoa, I couldn't do both. And I gave the whole company to my younger sister. So my 2 younger sisters now run the company. So it's kind of cool that I got to help them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yeah, that was really cool in that aspect. And
fishing's cool, but that's really sick.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked. But yeah, I don't really miss it. There's nothing glamorous about hey, you didn't pay this claim. What's the denial code? I can't read the doctor's notes. I was good at it, but it wasn't my calling, if you will.
Sounds a little less stimulating than steelhead fishing.
Yes.
By a small margin. I can understand that.
Mm-hmm. But I'm really grateful, and it allowed me to build what I have now. And so I definitely, in retrospect, wouldn't have wanted it any other way. So
yeah.
It's good.
Do you think kind of taking that chance, or maybe it felt like a chance to assume the responsibility and starting your business with the whole building experience and kind of have to be accountable and spearhead it and feel exposure in a way? If you blew it, then
it was so scary. If I lost a client, that was it's not I'm just an employee. I was just that's direct income to my life. And so I've always lived a life though of being so afraid that everything's gonna be gone tomorrow. I wish that I didn't think like that, but I guess I'd never have there's no one I can call, just be hey, help me out. Or so it's just it all is on me. And so that was a lot of pressure, definitely. And I was really scared to even just start it at the beginning. I was just the sounds of owning my own company was just the scariest thought I could think of. And so, but I also was just I don't know, I guess I didn't, even though I was really scared, I just still did it. I don't really know why, I guess. I wish I could tell you personality-wise what it was, but I was just well, I'll just figure it out, I guess.
Yeah,
I always
totally.
have.
Do you think, and I guess where I'm kind of curious with that, do you think having that experience set you up to give you more confidence or more perspective going full-time into fishing content creation, this space?
Yeah, I guess
because it is the world that you...
Yeah, I have to tell me your therapy charge rate, because I didn't even realize that, but you probably are onto something there.
You know, otherwise maybe you wouldn't have had the skill set or the tools to be okay, this is what accountability feels like. This is what income exposure feels like. You know what I mean? As opposed to just the comfort.
Yeah,
there's pros and cons to a 9 to 5.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The inconsistency of because these clients were still a contract basis that I had even when I was doing the billing, and so we had a contract in place, and how it was set up is, so I made a percentage off of the insurance claims. And so if they all got denied, I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So it was essentially commission based in a way. And so it was very I had to make sure that everything was dialed. It was so scary knowing that it all was up to me to make sure that happens. And some of it was out of my control. Some of it was just a denial because it's denied. And I'm shoot, well, all that. And then you think about all the hours you put in on that one patient's case. And then you're just oh, it turns out they just didn't have health insurance, so I don't get paid now. So there was a lot of learning curves within it, but it definitely gave me some tools to be smarter with, having a plan B. And even right now, I have the Instagram stuff and I have contracts and I do, talent gigs and all that stuff, and they're amazing. But I also am a community marketing manager for Bahio Sunglasses. And so that's like I work there part-time, and then I have the side hustle, if you will. But, some days it's like this, some days it's like that. It just kind of depends on what's happening, which can be scary. But I definitely am somebody that has to make sure that I can always at least pay my bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed it?
I do really love it. I love marketing. I think it's such an interesting, at least I love it in the fly fishing space. When it's something that you love and you get to be a part of, like, whether it's a product that people are going to be excited about or love that is in the industry that you work in, I find that really fun. And like for me, I do community marketing, and so I'm showing up to events. I get to like fish tournaments. I get to go to the fly shops, and it's like that's the stuff I want to do anyways. Like, and the fact that that's a job in the outdoor space is incredible. I'm very talkative, and I love connecting with people. I love talking about fishing, and that's essentially what my job is. And it's like, pinch me, like what?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I'm very, very lucky that I got into that realm of the industry too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I know it's really interesting kind of hearing everyone has their own origin stories, and at least in action sports, you hear this, a pretty cohesive story oftentimes as far as like, I was good at contests and I got to get media exposure and then now I'm
a judge or something,
a judge or whatever. But
like a tournament.
There's a lot of these other sports, fly fishing, things like that, I don't know. I guess I'm curious, it's cool to hear your perspective as like, oh, I was doing this, but then I ended up like kind of getting some deals. There's so much nuance
there is
to the space too that I don't think people always understand or appreciate.
I could not agree more. That's something like a little bit different what you're saying, but I was just, reflecting on this with somebody that was, they went pro as an athlete when they're 18 and they were pro for like X amount of years. And that's something I feel like it's not talked about in the industry too, is when you go pro at such a young age. And then when, you kind of age out, because unfortunately it is an athletic sports and that happens a lot of time. There's always someone new coming in when you're on that scale of it. And, this is like, I'm talking about pro snowboarder or BMX or whatever it is, like Olympic sports, not fly fishing. but then when you lose all that, like it kind of sets you up to like, what now? I always think about that. Like so many athletes are kind of just like, I just did that for my whole life, and now what do I do? What's my purpose? Like, do I become like a judge at the X Games, or do I do this? Like, I always think about that a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
There's origin stories. It's interesting.
Yeah, there's kind of a generational aspect. It is different with everyone too. I think some people are very focused on the present, and then when a time for a transition happens, it can be quite abrupt. And then there's other folks that are very entrepreneurial or in marketing, or they've like been involved
it depends
in
on the
what's
person
going on the whole time, and it's all of a sudden you see some natural transitions take place. But it is tough. Fortunately, I feel like there was a previous generations, at least in snowboarding, that's like my background, that have helped make a lot of mistakes for me to be like, okay, I need to have a few things, a few ducks in a row along the way.
Yeah, and I feel like you either think about that and plan ahead, or you don't, and then you become a car salesman or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or it works out. Some people totally do great.
Exactly. It is very interesting in the outdoor industry how each sport, in a way, it's all relatable.
Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. There's probably parallels to that in plenty of industries in my mind, though.
That's true.
Like
yeah.
Any actual sales or marketing space. On some regards, you might think like, oh, a professional athlete gets phased out at 30 or 40 or something. But in reality, eventually, you're kind of competing and getting phased out. Or there's always like a never-ending like Game of Thrones going on, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That is.
Unless you're like an accountant at like H&R Block, you're freaking chilling. You post it up.
Yeah. Do they just like have the rest of the year off? Or they only? I feel like they just work. Just tax
I'm not
season?
sure. Yeah.
Goodness.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I'm kind of curious. We talked about the Mayfly Project. And there is another group that you're affiliated with.
Yeah, I'm on the board for Native Fish Society, which they're based out of the Northwest, and they are essentially, their mission is to create a resource of abundant wild fish specifically. And they are one of the, there's many of those organizations that I'm also back behind, but I'm just happen to be on the board of this one specifically. And it's been an incredible opportunity. And for the last, I think it's been a couple of years now, which is crazy. But they're just a workforce. I don't know how else to put it. Like they are working behind the scenes, I've always like volunteered with nonprofits or, helped out. And so, but being on the board is like next level. It's like you're involved in the decision making in, sometimes the meetings don't look, like sugar and candy, but, it's hard topics. We're advocating like, should this river be closed right now? Should this dam be removed? Like these are big things. People's jobs rely on it sometimes. And so, but at the end of the day, like their mission is always like, is this the right choice for the fish? And that's what makes me behind them, because even though, I want to catch that fish and I love fishing, in 10 years, am I going to be able to do that? Maybe not. And so I'm thinking of the future where, not everyone does, and that's okay. Like I'm not judging anyone that is against that by any means, because it is, when it comes to salmon and steelhead, it is very political for sure. And I definitely recognize that. But at the end of the day, I will always stand on the side that's going to benefit the fish, and that's what they do too. And so that's why I'm really proud to be a part of that.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. It's always nice. Yeah. You can kind of get in the mix with an organization that you feel super, even just proud and honored to be a part of.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
stand behind.
Absolutely.
Goes a long way.
It does go a long way. And they're an incredible group of people and individuals. And you meet some incredible friends and you learn some of the biologists on there, I could just just talk to me all night, baby. Just kidding. Where did that fish go? What did he do? I'm just kidding. I love it though.
Oh man, that's awesome. Kind of coming to the end of this conversation, there's sort of a closing question I had, because I feel that fishing is there's so much nuance and there's so much left up to chance that you can kind of, you can't really, you can depend on it and going fishing, but you can't really control much of it at the end of the day, if that makes sense. So
no, it does.
I'm curious what your like white whale of a fish is, this like dream or even a trip or anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, no, it's one in itself, if you will. But I also love the white whale as anything in the sentences. I think it's so fun. I feel like nobody uses that anymore, which is fun. But mine is Scotland for Atlantic salmon. My Lockhart name's Scottish. And so I've always been obsessed with my Scottish heritage. I did a DNA test and I found relatives there, and they sent me oh, here's your 13th great grandfather Mungo Lockhart. Here's the Lockhart Castle that's no longer in service by any means. It's just abandoned. And then I just went on a deep dive. I was planning all these routes, meeting up with this second cousin or whatever. And they fish, and I wanted to fish this river for Atlantic salmon. And then just also go to find the Lockhart heritage and story. And I feel in a way everyone, maybe this is just me, I shouldn't speak on everyone in the world, but I always feel just craved this sense of belonging in a way, and maybe it comes from my upbringing, and I just feel connecting with my heritage might give me that. But also I just think it's so cool in that area how much is conserved heritage-wise. You can look up things from so long ago because it's such an old area, and just going into the library and being able to find all the ancestry things of know when my ancestors first came to North Carolina, and then they went to West Virginia, and then how they got to North Dakota and then in Minnesota. I just find it so fascinating, almost going back in time and taking steps through their steps. And then also finding out that through my heritage, there was fly fishing way back then. And Scotland has the River Spey, which is where spey fishing started. And so it's a dream trip of mine. Maybe there's a story in there, but either way, I want to go to Scotland and catch an Atlantic salmon and connect with my heritage there, which I think would be I probably won't be able to leave. I'll probably stay there, to be honest.
Next spot.
Yeah.
Next 10-year stint.
Yeah. I'll just get the accent, make it really believable.
Exactly.
They won't even know I'm American.
Yeah, totally assimilate. Get I don't know what kind of dog you would want to get. I don't know.
Exactly.
That would be cool. You got to make that happen. I think there's totally a story there that you could get
it's
some
a dream
layers
of
to.
Mine to go to Scotland. That's definitely my white whale with the Atlantic salmon there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That might be slightly more distant future plans. What about the immediate future? What do you got on the radar? What's in the works? I'm sure.
Yeah,
there's
Mayfly Project stuff. I'm evolving into this new era of teaching. I've always loved teaching, and so I'm working on getting certified to be an instructor for fly fishing. And yeah, that's about it. I'm continuing to share what I love with as many people as I can, and hopefully that will lead to more people protecting our outdoors. And that's about all I can do, I guess.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Well, thank you. I'm really psyched we got to catch up today.
Yeah.
And I kind of just wanted to open the floor on your end if you wanted to share any thank yous.
Oh, you're the first person to ever ask that. That's really kind of you. Well, thank you for having me. First of all, like, this is a great opportunity. And then I have to thank, everyone. There's been so many people that have led me to where I am today, and their support and has been, I can't even say thank you enough, but to the people following me, to the brands that support me, Redington since day one, Yakima, Ford, Rahio sunglasses, Leatherman tools, Rio products. I'm very, very grateful for all of you guys. And also my sisters, I got to thank them.
Yeah.
And my dog, my Juniper,
Yeah. Dog. You always got to give a shout out to the dog. All right. Well, this has been awesome. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was cool to get your story, your perspective, and kind of just chat for a bit. So once again, thank you. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. Hopefully you liked the show. If you did, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And in the meantime, from the crew at Backcountry, we will see you out there.
Bye.